This is the controlled explosion in East Palestine, Ohio, where a train derailment had caused.
Nuclear safety specialist here, and I want to talk about, is the situation in Ohio similar to a modern day 3 Mile Island? So I specialize in preparing and responding to nuclear emergencies such as 3 Mile Island. And I gotta tell you, this derailment in Ohio has been a major topic of conversation for my colleagues and I. It's a really good example of a major incident involving hazardous material. So is this situation like 3 Mile Island? In most aspects, this was worse. For the most part, people have been pointing out a lot of the bad things about this response, and there are plenty of those bad things. But when it comes to the response of the county and the local government, it was actually not that bad. Very early on, I realized that they're doing a lot of things very familiar to me, such as setting up joint information centers, doing evacuation at specific distances, setting up reentry plans and return plans, as well as setting up reception centers and congregate care centers. This was all from the playbook of the lessons learned from 3 Mile Island and nuclear plant response. And then I realized, this is Columbiana County. They're a county that has a nuclear plant within 10 miles of their border. Their emergency management and response organization is heavily funded by the Beaver Valley Nuclear Plant. And this is a very common thing throughout the United States. States that have nuclear plants have significantly better emergency management because the nuclear plants pay for it. So this response could have been way worse if it wasn't for the nuclear plants. So let's talk about how the hazard compared to the nuclear meltdown at 3 Mile Island, and why the train derailment was actually worse. You all have seen the videos and the pictures. Massive controlled explosions and plumes of toxic chemicals being released into the surrounding environment. You also had the dumping of tons of chemicals into the waterway. There's also reports of fish kills and other environmental harm. And this didn't happen at 3 Mile Island. Now, back during 3 Mile Island, there was a controlled release that happened, but it wasn't big enough to cause any environmental harm or cause any health effects in the local population. But it did cause a huge public perception of harm. Now, I've seen some public outcry, especially on TikTok, but it's been nowhere near 3 Mile Island. If the chemical and oil industry was required to respond to that incident in the same way the nuclear industry responded to 3 Mile Island, that would require major change and overhaul of how they do things. I'll talk about what that might look like in part 2.